All right. So how do we know what to include in work time? Like so we know what our hourly rate is or our salaried rate, but the other factor to determine how much somebody's getting paid is the time that they actually work. So how do we know when that time starts and stops? So any principal activities requiring exertion, either physical or mental exertion, and are required by the employer for the employer's benefit would be included in work time. So some examples. Preparation at your workstation. Sometimes changing in and out of protective gear as well can be part of a workday. Now, changing clothes, if it's required by the employer, think if you work at a nuclear power plant, you're going to put on a bunch of protective gear that will protect you from radiation. The time that you spend getting into that and out of that protective gear would be included in the work time. As opposed to you're at the end of your workday and you decide you're going to go to the gym after work, and you change into your gym clothes before you leave the office. Well, that is not part of your work day. That is not part of your requirements, so that would not be included. That time would not be included. Travel time, when it's a principal part of your work day. So commuting time is not included in that. The time that you spend getting from your home to the office is not included in that travel time. However, if you have to travel for your job within the workday, that would be included as compensable time. So if let's say you're a bookkeeper and you work for a CPA firm and they send you got several clients and they send you on site to those clients to go update their QuickBooks, get their bank statements, get everything up to date, get all of their accounting up to date, balance their checkbooks, all of that stuff. And you have to travel from your office to the client's office, and then you have to travel from the client's office to another client's office. Then that time that you are traveling between would be considered work time. So that would be compensable time. That would be time that they would have to pay you for that time. But again, commuting time that you spend getting to the office and getting home from the office or from your work site is not included in that. Idle time and waiting time. So that would be time that if your computer is down, maybe the network is down, right? So the network is down for a couple of hours and you can't get any work done. But the employer tells you cannot leave. And I'm sorry, I'm closing this for safety reasons. Not that there's there's nothing that I know of. I just feel it's a little safer if we're all behind that door. So if you have a network outage, but your employer says that you have to stay on the premises, right? You can't go home, you can't do anything else, but you're not really doing any work because you can't do anything because the computer's down, but you can't leave. That would be idle time. The employer has to pay you for that time because you're not free to leave during that. Rest periods of 20 minutes or less, they have to pay you for as well. Now, there's no mandated break time at the federal level. There may be, again, local ordinances or states that may have mandated break times. It's not mandated, but if they allow you any rest times of 20 minutes or less, has to be paid. So they can't make you clock out during that time. As opposed to meal times, there's also no requirement that employers provide meal breaks or pay you for meal breaks. So if it's generally 30 minutes or longer, they don't have to pay you unless they're also mandating that you perform work during that time. So like you're a receptionist and they ask you to still answer the phones during your meal time, but you eat your lunch at your desk, you're still on the clock, right? So they do have to pay you. That would be considered employee work time. So other things that it would include: work at home. Even if your employer tells you not to take work home, think of, and they may tell you not to take work home. If you do take work home and you do work, they still have to pay you for it. Now, they could terminate you for doing that, for violating policy, but they have to pay you for that time. Think about, emails. If you're answering emails at home at night, that's work time, and you have to be compensated for it. Now, if you are an exempt employee, obviously that's time. You're not going to get overtime pay for that, and you're not limited to that 40 hours a week, and then they have to pay you a premium over and above that. But it's considered to be work time. And they mention here that, the employer should have a statement and a policy manual, employee policy manual, regarding email work outside of clocked in hours. So, and this mainly applies to like hourly staff. The sleep time's a little bit weird here. If you're required to be on duty less than 24 hours, they have to pay you for any time that you're sleeping. There are other specific requirements that your book goes into about the sleep time requirements. But in general, thank you. And, you think about sleep time, and there are lots of professions actually where there is like medical professionals, truck drivers, pilots, that sort of thing where, yeah, indeed, you've got to have some sleep time there. So if it requires sleep time, then if you have to be on duty for under 24 hours, they have to pay you for that. Training sessions, I think we talked a little bit about this, and maybe one of the videos went into it, that, if it's training that is mandated by your employer, or it's on the employer premises, and you really don't have a choice as to whether or not to participate, then it does have to be included in the work time. And also, this one's a little, I don't know how often this happens, waiting for a doctor's appointment when you're on the employer's premises. So I suppose if you work for a hospital or something and your doctor's office is there and you need to go see the doctor while you're at work, maybe, I don't know, you got a hangnail or something, then that would be considered work time that the employer would pay you for as well. All right, so some things that are not non-compensable, so they don't have to pay you. So checking the time spent checking in or out, I don't know if they even have time clocks anymore, but waiting in line to check in at the time clock, that time of waiting to get there to check in is not considered to be time that they have to compensate you for. They don't have to pay you if you're sick and you're not working. So there's no requirement for that sick leave. If you're late, they don't have to pay you for the time that they're late. Now, they may have a policy, they will have a policy for how they calculate when time starts. So are they going to divide the hour up into 60 minutes so that it's very specific? You clocked in at 8:04, that's when you're going to start getting paid, 8:04, or they may round it. Maybe by the 5 minutes. So you clock in at 8:04, that rounds to 8:05. You're considered clocked in at 8:05. That's fine. Or they may round it to 15-minute intervals. So whatever the closest 15 minutes. So if you clock in at 8:07, you're considered to be clocked in at 8 o'clock. If you clock in at 8:08, you're considered to be clocked in at 8:15. So they can do that. They can round it to whatever interval they want. Usually they don't go any bigger than 15-minute intervals. But like I said, so you clock in at 8:08, but they round it to 15 minutes, you're clocked in at 8:15, so you've lost 7 minutes of pay. That's fine. That is if it's because of a rounding a system of timekeeping. So, and they call that the fractional parts of an hour there. Let's see here. Any questions so far on that? before we get into some calculations. I promised you calculations. I will get to these. 38.